Broward County. That possibility, and so here's the idea: it comes closer, closer, closer. We get to Monday, and it's approaching. So if the storm is just that much closer, it's over the Broward County coast. So that's that possibility. If the storm tracks where it's actually forecast to go in the center of the cone, then we won't get that. We might get tropical storm force gusts. So that's how that works. But here, Monday afternoon, tropical storm force winds, 40 miles an hour plus, impinging on the Treasure Coast there. Then we get a little closer Monday evening. It's closer yet. Doesn't take the storm to be very far off to push those winds into Broward. Notice Miami-Dade is farther away, so that's less of a possibility there. And the winds really come in up here at the Treasure Coast, pushing towards central Florida Tuesday early morning. They're still just offshore, but starting to move away, and then we go later in the day, slowly moving away on Tuesday morning. By Tuesday afternoon and Tuesday evening, all this moves north, but you can see the tropical storm force winds are over the land. Hurricane force gusts are just offshore of the Treasure Coast, and so that's why they have all these alerts farther north on up the coast there. So we're left with that tropical storm watch that Betty was talking about, possibility of hurricane winds in Palm Beach County, and the expectation of tropical storm force winds in Palm Beach County. There's your cone, and here it comes. The winds are expected to slowly decrease, just really because Category 5 storms don't sustain themselves forever, and the atmospherics, when you get this turn going on, you start to get a little upper air wind that kind of pushes over it, makes it a little bit less favorable. But look at these numbers. I mean, we're still talking about catastrophic type events, anybody that gets hit with a Category 4 or 5. So slowly coming down is the thinking here, and then on up to the north and threatening the Carolinas. All right, just one look at the models here, just for confidence, and this is why we have so much confidence. The European model is underneath all of the other models. Notice you can't see the center of the European because it's under there. So the red models is the consensus, the average model. That's what the Hurricane Center uses. And as we go farther north, then we get a little bit of divergence in the models, but the European and all these other ones or the GFS are right on top of each other offshore. The question is, these things change in the distance, but in the short term, we feel good. The models say, everything says that this is not going to come any closer to us, except that it gets to Grand Bahama and then move to the north. It's not going to dive down somehow in a sense that we have from Hurricane Andrew of suddenly kind of veered off to the left. We are confident that that's not going to happen. We're just going to get fringe effects in Miami-Dade and Broward County, and a little more likely to get a little more significant wind in Broward. So we'll leave it there now. Of course, we always have more, and we'll let you know what more comes in.
We're going to hold you to that. That is going to stay on the path now. We're going to hold you to it, all right? Some of the viewers are asking.
We're confident. Yes, we are.
Absolutely. Okay, Brian, thanks a lot.
And we keep getting video of the damage in the Bahamas.
Let's go to Wamenso on the breaking news desk right now with some images that are coming in from that area. Will.
And we're getting that video in, as Nicole mentioned. We've been getting it out of the Abaco Islands. It has been shocking, and most of it was coming from the eye of the storm after it passed over, meaning there was more to come. Now, this is just one neighborhood we got a glimpse of in Abaco, and you can see homes heavily damaged, cars crushed up, some flipped over. We saw power lines on the ground. You also saw a lot of flooding in specific areas of this video. The flooding there doesn't compare to the part we saw here in this part of Abaco. This video shows some homes submerged in that flooding. Boats capsized over as well. Apparently all of this from that strong storm surge that was expected. See it there visually, how bad it has been. Perhaps the most shocking video we've gotten has been from inside this home. This is a home in the Abaco Islands. The insulation just all over the home because the roof was ripped off. If you have lived through Hurricane Andrew or other major storms, obviously here Andrew in South Florida, one that many remember, this is an image that is all too familiar. This home was just absolutely destroyed. As we've been following throughout the last couple of days and throughout the morning, our Local 10 reporter Janice Fernandez is there with our photojournalist Brian Eli and Marsh Harbor, and they had a chance to be there and spoke to us during that sort of break that they got during the eye of the storm.
I am on the second floor, and there was that water that Brian was talking about, that it wasn't going to hurt, but maybe a little water may have seeped in. So my room should be okay, but my photographer Brian's room is actually on the first floor, and we actually saw they had these canopies that were covering the balconies, and we saw his canopy fly off. So we don't really know what happened at that point. Debris could have easily have gone through his window. We know that some of the hotel guests, thankfully all the hotel guests are okay. They came to the bunker after staff went room by room and said everyone's got to get to the bunker. They were visibly shaken up because the roof came off, and they said it was one of the scariest experiences they ever had.
Yeah, you can hear that in her voice and in the video. We are waiting to hear from Janice until that storm clears. Her and Brian went to that safe room, that area that they've talked about to be there once that second round after the eye came through. So as soon as we hear from Janice, get any video from Brian, we will bring it to you. But again, right now, what is coming in from the Abaco, truly incredible from the Abaco Islands there in the Bahamas. Calvin and Nicole will continue to follow that. And again, as soon as we hear from Janice, we'll talk to her there from the Bahamas.
All right, thank you, Will.
And we have breaking right now. There's been a juvenile struck by lightning in Miami Shores.
So let's get straight to Local 10's Hatzel Vela with the details. Hatzel.
Nicole, Calvin, obviously some really tense moments for the family living here at this home here in Miami Shores, 118 Northeast 102nd Street. We're told at least one pediatric patient, and that means someone who is at a young age was transported to the Ryder Trauma Center because he was struck by lightning. I was able to talk to a neighbor who says she really heard the huge or the intense sound that comes with lightning. When we arrived here, we saw an ambulance here still on scene. We believe the second relative who was hurt was still in the ambulance. Obviously not seriously hurt because the ambulance was still here, then took off. But again, one of the children, we're told, who lives at this house was struck by lightning, taken to Ryder Trauma. We did catch up with a neighbor. Obviously, neighbors here very concerned about these children.
I just got a text, so I came over to see if they were okay.
And what did you hear initially?
I just got a text that lightning struck the tree in front of their house.
We also saw a crew member for the Florida Power Light who was here checking out to make sure none of the grid was affected by the lightning. He didn't find anything unusual, but we spoke to a second neighbor who says they lost power on this block, that her house is on generator. She also tells me that her grandkids play with the kids next door, and there are obviously a lot of folks up and down this block are very concerned for the health of these young men. For now, reporting live in Miami Shores, I'm Hatzel Vela, Local 10 News.
Hoping for the best. Okay, thanks a lot, Hatzel.
Right now, we are going to go to Local 10's Terrell Forney. He is live at a mobile home park in Boynton Beach. Terrell, has everyone evacuated already?
There are still some people here who remain at the Briny Breezes mobile home community park. We've actually moved just behind the clubhouse here at the park to the shore line, but those people that we spoke with, they are still getting their belongings together. But I want to turn your attention to the water right now, because you can tell as you look that there are a lot of waves that are kicking up just because it is just a bit more breezier than your typical summer day. Obviously, because Hurricane Dorian is far out in the Atlantic, but it is slowly getting closer and closer to the shoreline here in South Florida. But let's get to this video, because we know that we've seen a number of people coming out to the water as well, just kind of taking a peek at things. This is the time where officials say you should not obviously get close to the water, because the rip current risk is very high just because the water is so choppy. But we've been taking a walk and a drive through Briny Breezes, and we've seen people who have been putting the shutters up on their windows, putting the shutters up on their doors. We've also noticed people who have been going inside of their homes, collecting precious photos, getting anything out of their property that they do not want destroyed. Obviously, a lot of nervous energy for the people who live in this development. They just don't know what to expect. They have some faith that the storm obviously probably will turn north at some point, but they just don't want to take the chance. And since this area is under a mandatory evacuation order, from what we have gathered from people that we've spoken with, they tell us that, that they are listening, they are heeding every step of the way.
We're not too scared, I don't think, but a little bit nervous for it. Yeah, trying to take it in stride and not overreact too much, but also be aware of what could happen. We started planning about 2 days ago, but when the mandatory evacuation set in, that's when we decided, okay, time to go.
So not even a question on whether you would stay or go?
Not really. We're not deeply committed to staying. No.
So that family not willing to take the chance, but this is a live picture in Boynton Beach where you see another family just kind of walking the shoreline as well. They are not obviously in the water. They are just kind of taking notice at this choppy surf that's really coming in here along Boynton Beach. But this is a very public beach, so it does not mean that they live in the Briny Breezes mobile home park. They could live from, just to the south of here or just to the north of here, but they are just kind of out here taking a stroll out here on the water. One other thing that I should tell you is that there is a police officer, a Boynton Beach police officer, that is driving around this mobile home community with a bullhorn, letting people know that they should not be here. So again, we have seen people here. They are still in and out of their homes, but it looks like, at least to us, that most of the people have evacuated. The shelters are open here in Palm Beach County. We know that there are 9 shelters open, including a special needs shelter and a pet-friendly shelter as well. But the family that you just heard from, they have somewhere to go. It is not a shelter, but the Palm Beach County officials are letting folks know that that is an option should things come to that point. I'll send it back to you, Calvin and Nicole.
Terrell, from the people that you've spoken to, I know they've been advised not to evacuate heading north, but have they told you where they're going? I know this family said that they were not going to a shelter, but are you finding that people are going to the shelters?
Yeah, the family you just heard from, they are actually going to a seminary. So they have some place to go. They have some ties to a seminary. So that is where they will spend the next few days. There was another family that I spoke with. They have some, relatives who are a bit inland, also here in Palm Beach County. So they will ride out the storm, or whatever effects that they feel from here. They will ride out the storm at that property. But that is one major point that the officials here in Palm Beach County were trying to stress. They did not want people to evacuate hundreds of miles away from here, especially if they decided to travel north. They say that is a very bad idea because the storm and its path is so unpredictable. They say just focus on getting miles away, especially if you are in these low-lying areas. If you are in a mobile home, no matter if it's close to the coast or not, you are not supposed to be there. And if you are in a surge-prone area, especially along the intracoastal, south of the Jupiter Inlet to the Broward County line, you are also under a mandatory evacuation order as well. So that is the message that the Palm Beach County officials are trying to at least get through to that very vulnerable population.
And everyone heeding those warnings. All right, thank you, Terrell.
We are fast approaching the bottom of the hour. We're going to take a very quick break, and we'll be right back with more coverage on Hurricane Dorian.
Here come the super lice. This here is happening.
They think normal pesticide treatments will stop us.
Mix Ultra! Ah!
Kill super lice in
ABC News. Straightforward.
This is what being live is all about.
I can see, pushing through.
This is ABC News Live.
Neighborhoods are underwater.
A 24/7 streaming news source from ABC News. Imagine breaking news, live events as they happen, streaming live, non-stop, straight to you. Imagine instant, incredible access to the most compelling live video.
That's a grenade.
Original, on the edge, breakthrough storytelling from ABC News, National Geographic, ESPN, all the most innovative storytellers, all designed differently for you to stream straight to any screen whenever you want. free. And imagine the most celebrated, epic live events and moments all playing out right before your eyes.
See those flames behind me?
Go there
trying to
now.
put this fire out right
With
now.
ABC News Live. Think of it as your live streaming adrenaline rush.
Just look at all of the smoke here.
Real, raw, live.
Columbus Zoo.
No matter where the next step takes us, we're taking it.
Wow. That's what first responders were worried about.
And go deeper inside the groundbreaking exclusives from the campaign trail only ABC News gets. Behind the scenes, exclusive access.
Take you inside for an extraordinary tour here on ABC News Live. This is it.
It's time to go there, be there, experience it, live on the scene. Maybe that's why, in just 1 year, ABC News Live is already America's #1 live streaming news. And imagine this, it's free. Watch ABC News Live right now and anytime, streaming on Roku, Hulu, Facebook, and abcnews.com. It's that easy to go there. ABC News Live.
What you're seeing right now, this is part of the eye wall.
This procession of migrants goes back 2 miles.
There is going to be catastrophic damage.
This fire has made a run. You can see those flames shooting up into the sky.
We are on the jam-packed red carpet.
All right, guys.
So this is the 4th weekend of...
ABC News on location for Facebook Watch.
Doctor. The top notes. Ismael? David.
Ground zero from Hurricane Michael.
You can see just home after home.
Dave, nice to meet you.
This was your view.
My favorite.
These guys appreciate it.
Here's the information. Maximum sustained winds 185 miles per hour, and it is just limping along Bryan. 5 miles per hour, crawling across those islands of the Bahamas.
So this pressure is an indication of the amount of energy in the overall circulation, is in the top 10 or 11 of all-time hurricanes in the Atlantic Caribbean, and the Gulf of Mexico. So this is extraordinary, and we've never had a Category 5 hurricane this far north in the Atlantic. We've had them in the Gulf, obviously. We had Michael and Camille in the Gulf, but the only other Category 5 hurricane we had make landfall, of course, was Andrew, and it was down farther south. And the other Category 5 hurricanes in the Atlantic have been farther south as well. So it is an unusual event in many, many ways, and certainly nothing like this in the record book has happened in the Bahamas. All right, there it is in reference to us, Betty.
Right, churning over the Bahamas. And earlier you talked about the rain bands. There's the eye, and how those rain bands are wrapping around all the way down toward Andros, and how even over here we're catching some of the rains in our area. And one little tornado spin up over there, not quite touching Marco Island, but I think that's sort of an interesting angle to look at how the weather might play out over the next 24 to 48 hours.
Well, on the fringe of these things, you can see what's happening over the land. Look at these outflow boundaries that we look at all the time here, right? They are caused by the thunderstorms. So that air rushing out of the thunderstorms, those outflow boundaries, that's conflicting with the flow coming around the hurricane. So whenever you get these various kinds of things conflicting with each other, that's where you can get big thunderstorms.
The collisions.
Right? The collisions, right. So over the land, when you get the heating of the land, all kinds of chaotic things happen when a hurricane is sitting far enough offshore that it's not dominating the flow, but it is affecting the flow. And so that's why you see things, you notice things over here are spiraling. Over the land, they're not really spiraling. They have a chaotic nature to them.
Right. So I am keeping an eye, by the way, on the thunderstorms. I'll get you in the know regarding that. But just to show you just how far-reaching this
Yes.
system is.
Well, so then the thing to remember about the thunderstorms that we're going to have here the next couple of days or whatever is they're moving so fast.
Yes.
Really fast, and they'll be really gusty, really fast, and gone. So anyway, just put that in your head. Look at that just incredible event that has taken place. You see the eye went right over Marsh Harbor. Now it's pounding the northern part of Great Abaco here and heading over. And now you can see it's like bending back a little bit south, and it is going to come right into Grand Bahama Island. And Freeport is over at this end of the island, but this is going to be so bad. So what's going to happen is they're going to get the storm surge from the north as it approaches, and then once it goes by, the storm surge will come from the south. If it does what the forecast is for it to slow down over Grand Bahama and then eventually move to the north. So,
and we've already seen the earlier images from Janice in terms of what it looks like with the surge there.
Yeah, and that's just in one point there in Marsh Harbor.
Exactly.
Right? There are other. So she's on this little peninsula up here. In this area in here in the mud flats in Marsh Harbor, there are lower areas in there that we imagine are much worse than even what she was seeing. So it's really something. Here's that incredible visible picture where you can see the stadium effect, the V effect in the clouds. And here
just
we
the
are
depth,
here.
The depth of the hurricane.
So here's what we're talking about. This is what you're forecasting. Betty, I know you were looking at this with the sunshine over the state, right, and very warm, but the energy from the hurricane interacting with the energy from the heated land.
Right.
So anyway,
thunderstorms.
Good luck forecasting that exactly.
Yeah. I got my running shoes on.
Here's the close-up of that incredible stadium effect eye with the sun setting in this direction and casting a shadow in the funnel of the eye there. Just amazing. Right. So this, I think, it's a chaotic looking thing. Don't look at past that line over there because this is a zone where what it's forecasting is the amount of energy in the water, and it's actually trying to forecast how far what the waves are offshore. Not the waves at the coast, not the crashing waves, but if you're a boater, you know what the waves offshore. Right. There's a number associated with it. The numbers aren't really important. What's important is anything when you get to the red that's really big and dangerous, and you can see the energy being put by the hurricane down here. See, there's Grand Bahama right there. We have kind of funny text there, don't we? But that's Grand Bahama Island. So that's blocking the energy from coming south. And there's the opening here. And this opening here, this is the Gulf Stream. So the Gulf Stream is flowing north here, and that energy from the storm is pushing south there, and all in this area they're colliding. And so that's going to make just with the seas really chaotic offshore and extraordinarily dangerous when you get that super strong north wind. So here we go. Watch the reds come. Here they come Monday morning. So picking up here, the energy in the water, picking up in Broward, not yet in Dade. Here it comes. Now it's like the whole South Florida coast and even more energy into the purples up here in Broward. Now it's not, notice it's not right at the coast, but imagine the huge undertow at the coast. So they're going to make every effort to keep people out of the water.
Right. As those swells are building.
That energy now is feeding down, but it's fighting the Gulf Stream, and actually it'll slow the Gulf Stream. The energy coming from the hurricane actually tries to slow the Gulf Stream. Well, the Gulf Stream's not stopping. The water's not stopping, right? It's coming up from the Caribbean, and it's pushing this way, but if it gets slowed that way, then it can actually rise. You actually get a little kind of a storm surge effect from that, but you also get very chaotic water. And then early Tuesday morning, this is the peak. It pushes all the way down to past the Keys, and that's why the boating down by the Keys is an issue. So here's the actual storm surge. This is the projection, sort of the reasonable worst case projection, up to 3 feet in Broward because of all these effects together of the storm surge and everything else going together. It's above normally dry ground. So you can imagine that some areas, some low-lying areas, are going to be affected if it does get up to 3 feet.
Right. Worst case scenario.
Right. So this is
just remember
what
that.
should we prepare for? What we should, what we shouldn't be surprised if we get 1 to 3 feet above where you would normally have dry ground in Broward. But then to the north, it's much bigger, closer to the storm, and that's why they have evacuations in effect in Palm Beach County. Okay, here's the wind direction, Betty, which I know you're getting a lot of questions about.
Oh, especially as it relates to king tide.
Right.
People want to know, is this going to exacerbate the king tide? And it's all in where you're situated related to the wind flow. And the flow we're going to see around Dorian as it's churning nearby, more of an offshore flow. So we wouldn't expect that to do too much to exacerbate the king tide in some areas, but there are in a lot of areas actually, but there are some spots where it could be problematic, Brian.
Right, because when we get big storm surge, like in Miami-Dade County, it's because, like in Hurricane Andrew, it pushes the water into Biscayne Bay, south of Key Biscayne. Got a big opening there right between Key Biscayne and Elliott Key, and it pushes the water in there, and it fills up the bay, and then that water has to go somewhere, so it goes up as you know, in Hurricane Andrew, Coconut Grove, Point South, on down toward Lakes by the Bay, and all that was flooded because of that effect. But now in this one, though, the water is going the other way. The wind is going the other way. So it's not pushing the water into Biscayne Bay. If anything, it's pushing the water to the east side of Biscayne Bay, which is not as big an effect.
As opposed as from the Atlantic toward the land.
Right. But that's not the case in Palm Beach County. In Palm Beach County, there we go. Right? And maybe a little bit into Broward, and that's why they gave us numbers for Broward, because it's just a little effect. Again, fringe effects in Broward, distant fringe effects in Dade. So the idea for the storm surge is no storm surge from the East Coast.
Right.
But I was reminded of Hurricane Sandy and the flooding on Miami Beach, on the bay side of Miami Beach from Hurricane Sandy. So we'll just kind of be aware of that. Depends on how strong the winds are and the persistence of the winds. It's as much persistence as anything else, pushing bay water a little higher than normal. So you have the king tide going, but the wind is holding it off a little bit, but you're pushing the bay water against the beaches. So we'll see. Just be aware on the west side of Miami Beach. And then in the Keys, we have a little different situation.
We do. So in terms of the Keys, it's that bay side of the Upper Keys that we're going to be more worried about. So will we get some Florida Bay flooding?
Maybe.
We'll see.
Maybe, because the wind is pushing into Florida Bay here, and Florida Bay is like a V there, right? So it traps the water, and all these bays are a bunch of little bays up in the northern or the eastern end of Florida Bay, depending how you look at it there. But in any case, the water gets trapped there, so it doesn't have any choice but to come up over the land. So people that live down there in Monroe County, they know well this phenomena, but it definitely gets exaggerated in this kind of situation. So we'll say Florida Bay flooding, maybe. You folks down there, just be in close touch with the local folks if you're in doubt. And dangerous seas offshore, because in the Gulf Stream here you have the winds going with it, and then as we talked about, the winds are going the other way against the Gulf Stream. All this energy is colliding out offshore, so extremely dangerous there.
All right. Coming up in a few minutes, we'll see where the thunderstorms are this afternoon. Calvin?
All right. Thank you, Betty and Brian.
Okay, in these moments when we're dealing with a storm, we have to worry about the pets and the bigger animals and also the smaller animals or even smaller insects. So now we're going to take you to Butterfly World in Coconut Creek, where Roy Ramos is standing by live for us with the very latest on this. Roy.
Yeah, Calvin, we are just west of the Turnpike on Sample Road outside of Butterfly World. They just closed their gates a short time ago, but not before they had a long day of work ahead of them. They had to capture, get this, more than 20,000 butterflies, and they had to do it by hand. Let's go ahead and take you to video inside of Butterfly World, where we just came out of. You can see those employees right there capturing the butterflies with nets and capturing them with their fingers. There's actually a very delicate process to that, because if you don't capture them the right way, you can kill them. What they did was capture all of those insects and put them inside of enclosures. They did this because they do expect wind and rain here in the area, and those butterflies just will not survive that. We did get a chance to speak to the executive director a short time ago. Here is what her major concern is. Take a listen.
If there's any chance that this storm goes directly west, if we were to have hurricane force winds, it would be very damaging to the butterflies. They really can't abide by too much wind, particularly. They're okay in the rain, but wind can be very damaging. And so we just made the decision to bring them all inside to keep them safe and get that done, just in case.
And Butterfly World will be closed over the next few days, but they say the next 48 hours are critical because these butterflies can only remain in these enclosures for that time. They need to be exposed to sunlight, they need to be exposed to humidity, and they will not eat if they are inside of those enclosures. So employees here are going to be watching Hurricane Dorian very closely. As soon as they can release those butterflies back into the 3 separate aviaries here on the premises, they will do that. Here in Coconut Creek, Roy Ramos, Local 10 News.
Roy, your honest reaction when you came in today, did you ever think in a million years, Hurricane Dorian, you would be covering Butterfly World? Just be honest.
You know, Calvin, this was probably the last assignment that I thought I was going to get. But to be honest, it was pretty interesting. Once we got inside, you know, you never think that this is something that they would have to take advantage of and to take care of, rather. But all those enclosures are outside. They're all screened in, so that's not going to withstand the winds.
Yeah, and maybe, just maybe, you learned a little something today. I know I did from listening to your report.
I did as well. I did not know that they could not survive inside of those enclosures. And, I mean, all these little tidbits of information that I've been getting throughout the day. I'll know about wildlife. I'll know about butterflies.
You learn something new every day.
You impress somebody sitting here next to me.
All right. Thanks, Roy. Okay.
All right. Well, Hurricane Dorian putting a damper on businesses in Fort Lauderdale for the Labor Day weekend.
Local 10 News reporter Sanela Sabovic took a quick tour to show us some of the effects.
A bit of a breezy but still beautiful day here along Fort Lauderdale Beach. As you can see, there are people here enjoying the beach, but it's not as packed as it normally would be for a Labor Day weekend. People still remaining cautious. Even some businesses have started boarding up. A slow Labor Day weekend here along Fort Lauderdale Beach. Usually we would see lots of foot traffic along A1A, but not this Sunday. People are still out and about enjoying the beach, but not in large numbers that we are used to seeing. Nearby hotels have removed furniture and fans off of their oceanfront patios, preparing for tropical storm force winds since Broward County is under a tropical storm watch. Over at Beach Place, some businesses have started boarding up, putting plywood over their beachfront windows. Restaurants are open. We've seen some visitors enjoying an oceanfront lunch. Many of them are hoping for the best while still having a plan in place.
Probably go to the West Coast for the next few days just to kind of stay out of the reach of the storm, but you just never know. I mean, it may reach the West Coast as well. You just don't know with these things, but hopefully it jogs north and we're all safe.
So again, Broward County remaining under a tropical storm watch. Businesses here along A1A taking the proper precautions of boarding up some of the establishments here at Beach Place. And residents also telling me that they've removed items from their backyards. Better to be safe than sorry. That's the latest here from Fort Lauderdale Beach. Sanela Sabovic, Local 10 News.
All right, Sanela, thank you.
Right now, we want to take you to a live look. This is our Hollywood Beach tower camera, and we can see some of the clouds there. But you know what? We also see people out there on the beach, Calvin.
Yeah, some dark skies there. And Betty talked about the outer bands of Dorian making its way into South Florida. This is what she's talking about here. So you may have had some rain showers
overlooking Miami.
Yeah, and once again, a comparison of the two. Already. Began to talk with the governor about Hurricane Dorian.
we want people to be listening to their local officials and heeding the calls to evacuate and listening to the instructions and preparing themselves. You know, this storm has been it's been frustrating. It's been uncertain. We had a track change that took it off Florida's coast 24 hours ago. The problem with that, and although we hope it continues in that direction, is a wobble here or there could impact Florida greatly. And I just don't want people to think that somehow because most of the cone has it being in the Atlantic, that somehow they're not at risk. This is a Category 5, 185 mile an hour wind hurricane. And to put that in perspective, that's 20 miles an hour more than Hurricane Andrew was in 1992. So this is a massive storm. It is absolutely obliterating the Bahamas. And so I'm hoping for the best in terms of the track, but at the state level, and I think people in Florida, they need to prepare for this to impact Florida and be prepared, listen to instructions, and do what you need to do to protect yourself and your family.
Okay, Governor Ron DeSantis there giving us an update on the fact that the state of Florida remains under a state of emergency and no one should be off guard here. They should be watching very closely.
And right now we want to go back to showing you some of the images out of Abaco Islands in the Bahamas and just what they are dealing with as Category 5, very powerful Hurricane Dorian just batters the island. The eye, you know, it made landfall, and this is just what they're dealing with, an overturned boat there, the water level rising. We've seen down trees and down power lines, and we've also seen people there. Calvin, the woman we saw earlier, we don't know who she is, but we saw her holding on to the staircase and with a baby in her hand.
Yeah, a 4-month-old baby. And, you know, this is just one of the neighborhoods that we got a glimpse of in Abaco here. You can see some homes heavily damaged, cars crushed, power lines on the ground there. You can also see some flooding in a neighborhood as well, some trees down on top of houses. These are some of the people who may or may not have had a chance to leave, or people who will come back home and see this is what was left behind, the aftermath of Hurricane Dorian.
And if we can go to the video that we saw inside the home, it's really one of the most shocking videos that we've seen. The home is in the Abaco Islands. This is the same area we're still showing you. The insulation that you can see is all over. As soon as we can get to that video, you can see just what has happened inside the home. And it really was just absolutely destroyed, Calvin, kind of like what we're seeing on the outside of this. But as soon as we can, and we can show you the inside of that home, just what's happening over there, it really is just awful to see.
Yeah, and they are calling this a catastrophic storm, and you can see why. Category 5 winds, 180 miles an hour, wind gusts 220 miles an hour, and that's a look inside the home that you were just talking about, Nicole.
And we can see that's the sink, parts of the sink that you can see, and look at the installations just coming from the roof, and they're taking you, room by room and just showing you all of their belongings that have just, gone to the floor or gone out of the house. There's just the debris all over. There you can see the roof ripped off.
Yeah.
It's
the
unbelievable
insulation
to
all
see
over
this.
there.
Yeah.
You can see at least one person talked about how we should pray for Abaco, and now you see why. This is someone's home, and even an apartment building, we understand, destroyed, and one reporter calling it pure hell. Marcus Moore, ABC News, calling it pure hell when the eye of the storm just ripped right across the island there. The flooding, too, doesn't compare to some parts of Abaco as well. The video you're going to be seeing there, some homes submerged in flooding, boats capsized over as well. Apparently, all of this from storm surge. They're expecting Hurricane Dorian to dump about 2 feet of rainfall in the Abaco Islands there.
And of course, our Janice Fernandez is in the Bahamas right now, but she is safe. We spoke to her a few hours ago, and Calvin, she told us that it was one of the worst things that she had ever seen. Yeah. And you could hear it in her that she was just astonished at how bad the conditions had deteriorated, because she's been there for a couple of days, so she's really seen it unfold before the storm arrived, during the eye wall, and then after. And now we still haven't had a chance to speak to her, but we know she is safe. She's in her safe zone in her bunker.
Yeah, the Prime Minister talked about some 73,000 residents who would be affected by this storm. Some 21,000 homes. People tried to hunker down in schools and churches and in other safe zones. You can see some of the power lines. If you listen in there, this is in the Abacos. Yeah, the power lines from some of the video that we're getting from people who are sending in from the devastation of Hurricane Dorian, a Category 5 storm, 180-mile-an-hour winds. This is just a little bit of what we're going to be seeing. And certainly once our Janice Fernandez is able to get up and get to an area where she can survey the area, we're going to see a lot of what you're seeing right now and so much more, and just hoping that there is not a death toll, but for those who were not able to make it out. This was a scary situation, no doubt about it. One of the worst storms ever to batter down on the Bahamas.
And as Betty and Brian continue to update everyone with the new advisories, you know, we just got the 5 o'clock advisory. We'll get another one soon.